From Greek myth to Birmingham schools, Operation Trojan Horse was a document which purported to be a how-to guide for hardline Islamists wanting to commit jihad by overthrowing head teachers at state schools in Birmingham. Now an investigation into that alleged plot has widened, with 25 schools now under the spotlight. Birmingham City Council said it had received more than 200 complaints in relation to its inquiry and is appointing a new chief advisor to deal with that number of them. Phil Mackey is here now. Just tell us why the council's taken this action.
Because it's had so many allegations and complaints from teachers, other teaching staff, from governors and parents at those 25 schools across Birmingham. Ever since this Trojan Horse letter first appeared in the public domain about 6 or 7 weeks ago, they've been inundated, they say, by complaints. And so they've appointed a man called Ian Kershaw, who's a former head teacher, to oversee their inquiry into those allegations. But they've also set up a separate group as well to look at how the community is dealing with this, talking to faith groups, local councillors. And that, interestingly, is being headed by Stephen Rimmer, who was a former national director of the government's Prevent strategy, its anti-radicalisation programme. So there are effectively two reviews going on here in the city now. On top of that, the Department for Education is carrying out its own investigations, and we know that Ofsted has already inspected 15 of those 25 schools, and one would expect that next term it will carry out further inspections.
Phil Mackey, thank you. We're joined now from Southampton by the political commentator Mo Ansar. And what do you think about the fact that the council has now widened its inquiry?
I think we have to welcome the fact that they're widening this inquiry and that there's going to be a proper investigation. I think one of the the striking issues in relation to this case is how initially the Secretary of State decided to press forward, whilst the governors of those schools, while teaching staff, while the chief executive of the local authority said, we don't want to whip things up into a hysteria. There's nothing to see here. And I think we need to be very, very cautious about the fact that we're throwing a spark into a powder keg.
Although it does seem that there are a number of allegations, doesn't it? The council say they're getting, they've had 200 complaints, including from teachers and other teaching staff. And
allegations need to be investigated. I mean, we do need to keep in mind we are living in an era where there is almost a new McCarthyism and witch hunts going on against Muslims, whether you are an elected mayor in East London, whether you are a senior cabinet or government minister, whether you're a social commentator for that end, or whether you're Muslim school. I mean, these schools that we are talking about live in and function in very deprived areas. 80% of British Muslims live on or below the poverty line. And just 10 or 20 years ago, in these schools, not even 1% of students were achieving C grades and above. And now we have over 95% of students attaining and achieving a C grades and above. And that's been an incredible turnaround. And sadly, I think some of these things are going to detract from the good work that these schools have done. The fact that they're being called Islamic plots and Trojan horses, I think, is incredibly unhelpful and is just fueling hysteria.
But can you be certain that there isn't any truth in the allegations?
Well, I mean, journalistic integrity is important and vital in today's society. We are now living in an era where unfounded, spurious allegations which are written from anonymous sources are coming to light, and people are beginning to question why the Secretary of State, why Michael Gove felt the urgent need to, as it was reported in the Sunday Times, to throw away effectively the rule book on Ofsted inspections and go in so hard. And there are some concerns about whether he actually shares the ideology of some anti-Muslim groups.
Well, that's a pretty serious allegation, but it's not just Michael Gove, is it? We've got Birmingham City Council today talking about it and the fact that they're widening the inquiry themselves.
Well, Martha, you say it's a serious allegation. I mean, I spoke to a senior government minister last year who said to me that one of the reasons that Michael Gove's department, and it wasn't actually the Department of Education that had funded Tommy Robinson, the extremist leader of the English Defence League, to go into schools to spout his nonsense, it was because Michael Gove himself didn't find him extreme. And I think these are incredibly serious and worrying situations that we find ourselves in.
Obviously, Michael Gove isn't on the programme. We did talk to ask the Department of Education to put up a minister, but I can imagine that they may dispute what you're saying there. But more generally, does it appear to you that if these allegations are coming from, you say that they're unfounded and they're just journalistic, but the council is saying they're coming from teachers, they're coming from some parents, they need to be looked at, don't they?
Absolutely. I mean, where you have serious allegations of any kind of misconduct, whether it's in political life, and I've been an educationalist for many, many years, going into schools, doing monitoring visits, working with governing bodies and governing service review boards as well as select committees, and I have to say, we want to improve attainment and achievement and conditions, especially for hard to reach groups. Ethnic minorities and Muslim communities are disproportionately underrepresented in governing bodies, and their children are suffering in schools, and it's important that we do this in a balanced way.
Mohammed Ansar, thank you for joining us.